go, because this is kind of a pretty big subject right now in the community and with every event. And I'm sure you've experienced the question of, do I even use technology? What is that? What does that mean for my event? Is it even appropriate for my event? And there's a lot of background that needs to go into it before you should make that jump and make that decision. So I'm kind of here to show you different things to consider when you're looking at the use of technology within your event, and also who really is responsible for it when you do the technology and when you roll out the technology at your event. So please feel free, please stop me as you guys have those questions that pop up. So I'm sure you've all had these are feedback that we've had in our sales meetings with clients and in our conversations with clients is, well, everybody's doing it, shouldn't I do it? They told me that I would make 300% more if I used technology. That would be awesome, but I don't want to miss out on something. And I feel like if I'm not using the technology, that means I'm behind the curve. I'm behind the expectation in the community. I can open up my auction 2 weeks before my event, so I should make more money, right? And then if I use it, every single person at my event is going to bid, right? Sure, sure. But these are really common things that we hear when we are talking to clients about the technology and about where we are. And do we help you make that jump, or do we continue on the path that we're on and make you stronger and better until you're ready to make that jump? So probably have heard them, probably have said them yourself too. So what does technology mean for my event? So tons of options. There are a lot of companies out there that offer technology for your event. Some will offer you tablets, some will offer you iTouches, some of them will offer you smartphones, some will do hybrids of all of them, some will do just smartphones. So you want to really look at, when you're making that decision within your event and you're talking about technology in your event, you really need to know what the companies are offering and how is that going to mix and fit within your attendee base. Because some are not all, one option should not be your only option. That really is going to limit your patron base and limit your potential bidding opportunities at your event. So when you can have hybrids of technology at your event, you're going to see a lot of different revenue opportunities that come out that you haven't seen before. So user interface and usability, that's a huge one as well too, is how do my patrons access it? How do they use it? And how do I make them use it and use it effectively to where they're going to say, hey, this was the best thing ever. I just put in my bid number, I placed my bids, I'm winning all my items, and boom, I'm done, and now here I'm at checkout and I want to collect all my winnings. So there's a lot of background that goes into the usability and training that we need to talk about as well. So within that, what areas of your event can use the technology? So everybody's probably got silent auctions, live auctions, asks, raffles, wine pulls are coming out a lot more, mystery boxes are popping out a lot more. Are all of those areas good for technology use? No, the answer is no. If you do not have silent auctions at your event, I personally, within my company, will not sell you on that technology. The reason being is that I can't, on technology, your mystery boxes, your raffles, your wine pulls, while technology will make that process simpler and easier for your patrons, is it going to make you 3 or 4 times the amount of money versus not having the technology in those areas? The answer is no, because they can't buy those areas on they shouldn't be buying those areas on their phones, because you need to control the sales. So you need to actually have those people go up to a tablet or go up to the booth, the mystery box, or the wine pull area, and physically they're taking a bottle of wine off display. You're controlling that sales area. So the technology of offering it to them to buy it on their smartphones really isn't opening up the sales opportunity for that item. It's making it easier, but is it making it accessible from outside of your event? No, because how do you sell a wine bottle to somebody who's not there? So when you're looking at the areas of your event that you use the technology for, it's really built to help and build and sustain your silent auction. That's the biggest piece. Your live auctions and your asks should always be done live with frenzies, with crazy momentum going through that ballroom. If you're asking somebody, hey, we just had this amazing presentation on the stage for this for our ask, Everybody's crying, everybody's just heartfelt. Right now you've grabbed them and you go, great, everybody pull out your smartphones and go to bid480.com and place those donations. You lose that momentum. Those people now, you're asking them to pull out a technology piece, you're asking them to take their focus off of you on stage, take away from your mission, take away from what you just got them engaged to do, and now you're saying focus down here. That's not gonna raise you the money. When you see hands go up, and we did it for the Panda event, which is our sister chapter, Panda did it and $60,000 came from the $100 level in their paddle. That would never have happened if we directed them all to the technology. When you see your friend at a coordinating table, when you see your friend that you just invited and they bought their table this year, all their hands at their table go up, you go, oh, I'm not letting them beat me. I'm going it too. And you're gonna do it at my table and we're all gonna go do it at my table. That money starts to just skyrocket. So your asks and your live, I never would have your technology be used for that. You can supplement, but never make that be the focal area of how you're getting your give in the ask. So that's really important when you sit and look at really what is my event built from, silent auctions, live auctions, asks, raffles, really pinpoint down where that technology is going to be helpful for you, and then determine, do I even need to go down that road of using the technology and having all the companies come out and do their presentations and picking the best one for my event. Because in most cases, technology, I won't use it. I won't sell it if it's not going to return the revenue that I would expect the technology to do for you. So that's really key when you're looking at, is it even effective for me? Is it something I should even be looking at? Other considerations when you're looking at this technology being driven and being utilized at your event is who's responsible for making it work? What's the answer to that? Each one of you in this room is responsible for being successful, making it successful. Your committee, your board members, your volunteers. Everybody should partake and learn and love that technology, because who's out on the floor doing your welcome wagon? Board members. If they don't know how to use the technology and you have a guest that comes up and says, great, Susie, it's so great to see you. Thanks so much for coming. Hey, can you help me get onto this site? I don't even know what I'm doing. I didn't pay attention at registration. And they go, yeah, let me, sure, let me just get you to somebody who can do that. You lose that momentum right there with that bidder who is ready to give. You don't have them connected anymore. So if you guys aren't learning that technology, don't expect it to be successful, because there's only so much that the company that you bring in to do that and the technology that you have, whether it be smartphones, tablets, iPads, iTouches, whatever, there's only so much that that system can do on its own. You have to help be the ambassador group out on the floor to make that successful. And then the best one is, what's a backup? What if it doesn't work? What if you're only using smartphones at your event and guess what? I don't have cell coverage in your venue. I can't place a bid. What's my secondary option? How do I get my bid placed? How do I participate in your event? What happens if we're in the middle of, Desert Foothills events and we have very, very low cell coverage? Again, what is a backup? So you should always have a secondary option within the technology for you to be able to say, that is my coverage if I can't use option A. Because if you don't have a backup, you're losing all of that potential bidding and your silent auction will literally suffer. Because the walkout of your event is going to say, well, I would have loved to bid on all these items. I couldn't use my cell phone, my battery died, maybe that's what it is too, or I had to keep it for my sitter because it's the first night out with my husband in a long time and we're gonna party, but I have a babysitter I have to pay attention to. If you're not paying attention to what that secondary option backup procedure is, you're also losing out on opportunities within your event, because the what ifs have to be considered at every single event, every single time you do it. It's not always something you want to consider. It's not always something you want to have in the back of your mind, but we always should have a backup plan for every single step that you do at your event. And technology is one that you just have to have a backup procedure. Technology, okay, these are technology and the common kind of hesitations that we hear a lot of. Will my older crowd understand it to be successful? I have a mix at my group. maybe on the Valley 2030 Club, and hey, yeah, all my group is 20 and 30 and 35, 40-year-olds, and they'll be great. But now I'm at a mixed event, and I have a group that is my well-maintained, my well-seasoned donors, my ones that I cannot do my event without because they spend the money. But now I've got this younger generation in that is starting to take over that leadership. How do I find that balance with them? Will they be successful? Will they adhere to the technology? Or will they get afraid and step away and say, no, I'm not going to bid? And that is a big donor for you in the past that just now walks away without spending anything. So when you're considering that, pre-event training tools, there's a lot that your company that you utilize should be able to work with you on to make these barriers become flattened and become a non-existent bump in the road for you. So when you're doing pre-event training tools, there should be opportunities for them to get out and play with the system ahead of time. Do some teasers beforehand. If you're looking at using technology for the first time and you're really hesitant, there should be a demo site that you should be able to throw out to your committee, out to your board and say, play with this for a week and give me your feedback. Can you use it? Is it easy to use? Is it easy to maintain? Were you able to get all of your questions answered? Could you place bids, track your bids? Did you know when the silent auction was closing? There should be opportunities within every vendor that you contact to be able to do that without any hesitation from that vendor. We're here to make you successful, and that's where, when the technology is out there, it's scary. It's very scary for a lot of groups, and we want to make sure when you're going at it that you have all these tools necessary to say, okay, I feel confident in making this decision and making this jump, and here's how I'm going to put my action plan into place. Your event ambassadors, that's part of your welcome wagon. That's really making sure that everybody from the ground up at your event knows how to use that technology. Because again, if they don't, you're really losing those opportunities within the event to place those bids and to make that silent auction grow, which is what the technology is meant to do. But if you don't have the ambassador group out there supporting it, then it won't grow. And you're gonna sit at the end of the event and say, gosh, I didn't make any more money. I don't even have any new bidders. What happened? So voice of God announcements throughout. So this has really kind of helped, I think, clarify a lot when we make that transition from the silent auction cocktail session into the dinner hour. There's opportunities in there when people are just sitting having their social hour, social time frame during the first course or whatnot, that you can do a lot of voice of God announcements to make sure that they know when the silent auction's closing, highlighting some of the hot items that are out there, making sure they know that there are items that maybe don't have any bids at that point in time still that they can go out and entice. Sometimes when you sit at the dinner table, it's different conversations come up, and if you can say, oh my gosh, did you check out item 62? That, you know, zoo package backstage pass opportunity is still out there. It's the hottest thing out on the floor. I've got to get my hands on it. So it's just making those small talk conversations, but as long as you've got the training and background, you'll be much more successful. The countdown to the close, this is huge because a lot of times you're doing the countdown to close when everybody's in the dinner area. You're not doing it any longer in the cocktail session of the silent auction. You've moved everybody over. You've transitioned that silent auction a little bit longer, but now you need to make sure everybody knows when it's closing. Because just watching it on your phones, on your tablets, on your iTouches, whatever you've got going, you're not necessarily always paying attention when you sit for dinner. There's a lot of other conversations that are taking place. So making sure that you've got either it on the presentation slides that you can build one in that says silent auction closes in 10 minutes and it's a countdown clock, or you've got the voice of God opportunities through your AV to be able to utilize that as well. Making sure they know they've got at least that 5-minute window. The worst thing that can happen though is that you close the auction, nobody makes an announcement, and then we always have clients that go, oh my gosh, we have to reopen it. We have to reopen it. Nobody knew it closed. There's no way to reopen that auction effectively without upsetting every single patron who just got a notification saying, winner, winner, chicken dinner. And now they go, wait, now you just took it away from me? What do you mean you took it away from me? Well, we had to reopen it because we didn't really make a clear announcement. We wanted it to be fair, so we reopened it for 10 minutes. No, 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 no. Be proactive in everything. So make sure it's in your speeches, make sure it's in your outlines, your timelines, everything for the night. Make sure your AV team's working closely with you guys to make those announcements for you so that you don't have those people at the end of the auction that say, I didn't even know it closed. I wasn't paying attention, I was having a conversation. Don't have those opportunities get missed. I have volunteers that can run my event. They most certainly can, and they certainly should be used at your event for the technology. Like I said, they should know that, and they should learn it, and they should love it just as much as anybody else at the event. If they are part of your team that is out on the floor to encourage the silent auction bidding, to roam around and encourage bids that are taking place throughout the silent auction, they should absolutely know that system inside and out. So the volunteers, use them all day long. Just give them into the right areas and make sure they're properly trained so that they can support whatever system you're using. The big one, I can't cover that cost, but I really, really want the technology because I think it's going to make me the money that I'm after. Every system should be able to have sponsorship opportunities within them. If you guys don't have auction sponsors specifically designed and developed within your sponsorships, create them. There are multiple opportunities that you can utilize a sponsor on the systems that you use, on the production that is done within your silent auction, on the display sheets that you do, on the invoicing, anything that can happen within that event relating to the silent auction, a sponsor can certainly buy up and utilize. You guys were given at registration a little business card stock welcome sponsorship. That is part of a sponsorship in events where we don't have a live auction, we don't have a cash call. Sponsorships can buy those and use those and put their name all over it, put a gift opportunity on there, bring this card in for 10% off, bring this card in for a free appetizer. It will go into the hands of every single attendee at your event. So sponsorships are definitely viable and usable in your silent auctions. We just aren't creating them enough. We aren't utilizing them. We don't seem to think about, oh, there are opportunities for me to use them. And there are companies that would buy those in a heartbeat. So you make sure you've got everything really laid out when you're looking at, am I going to use this? How can I effectively use it? That cost should be absorbed completely by a sponsor. And you have a net income. Basically, you'll have a profit out there because they should be buying it for more than what it's costing you because you're producing all of that marketing information for that sponsor. You're putting their name all over a lot more opportunities than what you currently have within your sponsorships. So make them pay for those too. Online auction add-ons. This is a big one because it definitely comes in hand with technology. So because you have the technology at your event, you can certainly open up your auction early. Is it the most effective way to do it? How do I do it? And what do I do with it? So when would you start and stop your online auction? If you're looking at, say my event is on a Thursday, and I want to run my auction for 2 weeks ahead of time. That's great. Make sure your auction, though, is ready to go 2 weeks beforehand. A lot of times it's not. So we don't want to throw something out there that's not fully produced and finalized. The worst thing that you can do is blast out to your donor database that, hey, check out our silent auction, it's all online, get your bids in now, silent auction will close on event day, and you have 25 items up there. If you don't buy them and suck them in that first login, they're not going to come back. So even though you add 30 items 3 days later, 30 items another 6 days later, if they didn't log in that first time and get drawn into that bidding site, they're not going to log in 2 days, 3 days later to see your new auction items. So just know that when you set it out there, make sure we're ready to go with it. Make sure your pictures are done. Make sure your descriptions are done. Make sure everything is set and ready to go so that when we send it out, it's done. You guys are checking that off of your plate. You're ready to move on to the other activities within your event, and you just watch that revenue. It's the items that you use for it, and what items do you not use for it. We have a lot of school events that can do front row parking, which blows my mind every year. Andrea is shaking her head. Yes, yeah, my daughter does that. Those go for $5,000, $6,000, sometimes more in your live auctions. Throwing those out for silent auction bidding probably is not the best use of those auction items because you're not going to get, in most cases, you won't entice a bidder to give $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 on an online auction when they're not being pushed and poked and prodded to compete against somebody else that they know and go, oh, Mrs. Jones is not winning that front row parking. I'm parking there this year. So you want to make sure when you're looking at the online auction that you're throwing out the right auction items out there. If you have duplicates of items, fantastic, great. But don't put every single auction item. I don't believe that they're all viable for using on an online auction. Some of them should be maintained and utilized on event day and utilized in your live auctions. So you're going to really want to look at the criteria for where your revenue has been at in the past on those items and determine where we utilize them going forward. Do you offer the buy now option? For me, this has gone back and forth. The buy now option is a great opportunity to just get it done and get it over and be done with it. However, what happens if every one of your auction items is sold and done before your event day and we didn't set the bids high enough? That's what that tells me. Everybody's sold them 150% across the board. Fantastic. That is awesome. However, what that also tells me is, oh my gosh, we have a lot of money we left on that table. Because if they were willing to spend 150%, they would have competed all night long for that auction item. So I don't put buy it nows. I don't like to put buy it nows on every single item. Sometimes I'll look at each one with you individually and say, great, put it on that, but don't leave it on these. If you're a school, don't put them on your classroom baskets. Don't put them on your teacher for a day. Don't put them on your teacher items. Those ones, those parents will go crazy for those. So let them compete, let them fight for them. Some of your other items, fine. Yes, it makes sense to throw a buy it now on there, but make sure you're setting it at a level that makes sense. Don't set it at the value. Make some money on it. Because if somebody's going to take it in that first 5 minutes of it being on an online auction or the first 5 minutes at your event, you're going to lose potential revenue if we're not setting it high enough, because that tells you, oh my goodness, they were willing to already pay 150% of it. Now we need to look at where we set it for next year. We've got a lot of our clients already at 200% of that value, and they're still being sold outright very, very quickly. So when you're looking at where do we start things, where do we place things, which items go in, where do we put a buy it now, your past data is very, very critical for you guys to be looking at. If you're not taking the time to look at that data, then you're just going to sit stagnant and you're going to say, gosh, why am I not increasing my revenue? Why am I not making any more money? Look at your past data. Donor fatigue problem with it. So we had an event that had 200, maybe more, in their silent auction. We had a mini live auction, which happens during your silent auction cocktail time frame, but it's meant for those great items, but they're not super great to go into a live auction, but we know we should make a little bit more money on them, so we have a mini live auction. It's done during the cocktail hour. It's very informal. It's whoever's paying attention at that point in time is going to get in on it. They had teacher raffles. They had regular raffles. We had a regular then live auction and a cash call. 225, maybe 30 people at the event. The attendees at the end were saying, I didn't even know what to focus on. I had no idea what I was doing tonight. Make sure that you guys are setting everything so that you're successful on what you're throwing out there. Don't do it all just because you've heard that's what everybody does. And that's the big thing with technology. Don't do it just because everybody else is doing it. Make it make sense for your event. So when you're throwing all of these opportunities out there, and sometimes we get it where it's through different board members that say, oh gosh, I was at so-and-so's event and they had an awesome wine pull, let's do it. Fabulous, let's make it the best wine pull that you can, but then we're not gonna have 200 separate auction items either. We're gonna make it so it makes sense financially for your patron base so that you're growing that revenue and not just spreading out the $500 that they came with, because you're not pulling any more money out of them. How do you promote it to get bidders? This is the biggest piece that we always see with our clients that say, gosh, I really want to do an online auction. I need to do an online auction because everybody has it. But how do I get it out there? And how do I get bidders to actually bid and not just sign on and avoid it, in essence? They get your blast and they go, I'll wait until the event day. That comes with a lot of how you're doing your donor database from each event and how you're tracking those attendees. Like Larry was saying, is looking at your financial data. If we're marketing and targeting to a database that isn't growing every year, then you won't see revenue, you won't get them to entice, they're not bought into your cause. They're not bought into you. They're gonna just get it as an email and they're gonna say, oh, I'll wait on that one. I'll deal with that one later. If it doesn't grab them the second they open that email, they're not coming back. So you've got to find a way within your promotion and your marketing of it to say, hey, when they open this email, I've got to grab them, I've got to get their attention, I've got to get them to log on right now, but then your auction has to be ready to go. So you've got to make sure that everything is on point when they open that email and they see what you're selling and what you're sending out to The potential of losing attendees because of it. So this has always come up, and this is always something that we hear throughout is that, well, now my online auction, now my attendees know that I have my auction goes live 2 weeks before my event. They're not committed yet on a ticket buyer. So they're not in my seat at my event. How do I get that to happen and not just tell them, oh, I can just participate from your online auction? That's always a fine line that we have to be able to try to cross the right way at your event, because you don't want your attendees to get in a mind frame that says, oh, they're always online, so I'm just going to go and do her online auction, but your event, I'm going to go ahead because they're on the same night. You don't have an online auction, so I'm going to attend and buy your ticket. You get my ask money. You're not getting my ask money. So that's something to consider too when you're looking at, do I throw out an online auction in conjunction with my event earlier than my event? When do I start that so that I don't lose that potential ticket in the seat to get more money and to gain their relationship? Because an online auction bidder is not a relationship. If they're not attending your event, they're not learning your mission, they're not learning your cause, they're not getting the welcome wagon, they're not getting any of that information to be a lifelong grower and supporter of your event. So be very, very careful. Just because you hear about all these online auctions, it's got to make sense for what you're trying to accomplish within your event. If you have your online auction run sole and separate from your event, great. That you're not competing for getting their butts in your seat. You can throw out an online auction, you can throw out a post-online auction. We've done that a lot with clients that say, gosh, you know what, we just had too much stuff. We didn't throw it in on event day because we didn't want it, but now we need to get rid of it. Do a post-online auction. So it's a fine, when you're looking at online auctions, yes, they're viable. They definitely make it, but it's a lot of work that needs to be prepared and done before you ever send out that blast that says, hey, we're ready to go, and we want your money. Questions before we go a little bit further? Okay. My timer's telling me I'm on my time.
So in my venue, AT&T gets no self-service in my vault.
Yeah.
So how do I allow them, well, I guess they use my laptop. I just answered my own question.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're bringing your personal laptop?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't think we advertised that well enough because those people didn't know that the laptops were there.
Okay. And that's something you definitely need to make sure you're marketing within your pre-event notifications with your patrons, is letting them know. We've even seen it where we have clients that will send it out and say, hey, make sure everything's charged and ready to go. However, if it's not, we've got these opportunities throughout your silent auction area for you to utilize our devices in place of yours. So making sure that's notified ahead of time, because the last thing you want to do is encourage your patrons in a gala event, bring your iPad. Because if your phone doesn't work, you know, you want to carry that around. Us as women, we're already trying to reduce the purse size at our galas. Now you want me to bring my iPad? So you want to make sure you've got that backup secondary option in place for your bidders, not to make sure that they have that in place. Because a lot of times too, I know if I'm with my husband, I'm not going to bring my phone, he'll bring his. I want to reduce, so I want availability. So I use those secondary options when I'm at events because I don't have my phone on me. So yeah, make sure you don't take that away, give them that option. Yeah, definitely. Other questions?
Yeah, you talked about backup to the technology, but what are the options?
So a lot of times your vendor of choice should have a backup in place. If their technology, if they're only giving you one option, so say they only have the iTouches or smartphones or whatnot, if there's only one option from them, you need to find out from them, what's your backup if nobody can place these bids? If we don't have a secondary option of tablets or of iPads or anything floating around from our guests or from our volunteers and our staff, how are you going to ensure that my patrons don't miss a beat within the silent auction? Because that's the very case. If your cell phones don't work in that venue, and there are a lot of venues, cell phone coverage is not 100%, you guys. It's not. You know it, you've been there, you've done it. You could be in the heart of Phoenix and you have 0 cell phone coverage. We did an event at Kierland in the basement ballroom, the Herberger Ballroom. and it is cement block walls as thick as you can make them. Cell phones completely dead when you walked in that room. So you need to make sure you've got a secondary option for those bidders. If you're extending that silent auction into the dinner area or lunch area, what's your backup for them? Because, bless you, because you don't want that silent auction to just fall off on your bidding scale. So you need to be looking through your vendor. What is my backup? If you only have one option for my patrons to do their bidding, how are we going to make this work if that one option isn't 100%? Any other questions? Okay. So the big thing to take away that I really want to make sure with the technology is don't feel like you have to do it. Don't feel like you have to make that jump over to the technology. You can be the strongest, the best, the most successful event possible with paper bid sheets as long as we are looking at our statistics from year to year and we are growing the event from the bottom up. And we're not just looking at your gross numbers, which is what a big tool at the end of our events. What's my number? What's my number? I have gross numbers. I don't have net numbers. I have gross numbers for you. So making sure that we're looking at and really looking through those reports and that bidding activity, you should know every bid to value percentage. You should know every single bidder that participated. You should know your high bidders. You should know what they were spending their money on. What's hot, what's not at your event? Where do I focus my energy and my efforts for the next year? Because if you're not doing that kind of legwork, jumping to technology without that, it's not going to make you any more successful than what you are today. And in most cases too, you may even have some more obstacles that you encounter with your guests if we're not preparing them for that jump.